This is Jefferson Close-Up. I'm Carol Saline. My guest, Dr. Paul Mather, a cardiologist. Now, from our earlier conversation, while I don't see any little marks on you, I gathered that you were infected or bitten by the travel bug quite early. Where did that come from?
My parents traveled a lot. My father worked for the government of Sri Lanka, and that made him travel throughout the world, and he took us along for the ride. And in fact, I think I took my first trip in utero.
Where are some of your favorite places that you...
Well, some of my favorite places in the world are Italy and southern France, and also the big island of Hawaii.
Oh, nice choices. Do you do this tradition with your own family, travel with your wife and children?
Absolutely. We try and travel at least once or twice a year to extended places and then locally. One of the things we want to do is explore America, because we're always going to Europe or Asia, and now we want to explore America.
So if you could change places with anyone in the world, would it be a commercial pilot?
No, actually it would be that television restaurateur and critic Anthony Bourdain. He has the best job in the world. He gets to eat around the world.
Wow, that sounds great. Count me in. Now, when you were growing up, you were very interested in history as well as writing. In fact, you had a short story published in an anthology when you were in high school. So how did you make the transition from writing and English into medicine?
I think I've always had a fascination with history and the culture and how we became who we are, and that had a natural segue into learning about people. Marrying that to the desire for service, it became a comfortable thing to contemplate medicine.
Do you tend to be philosophical?
I think so, sometimes to a fault, and sometimes I try and go past it and get down to the everyday nitty-gritty. But in general, yes, I try and take a big picture view of life.
So what would be a fictional hero for you who had a kind of philosophical bent?
One of my favorite novels is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and it's a story about a journey, an individual journey that takes place probably within a 50-mile to 100-mile radius of the person. And I think that is an important book in my life, and I've tried to share that with my children. And so that fictional hero has had a great deal of meaning for me.
Is that your favorite book?
I don't know whether I can say I have a favorite book, but it's up there. There's several books I really enjoy reading, including James Joyce's Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man and Eric Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front. Those are three books that off the top of my head have had a great impact on my life.
How do you transmit this love of literature to your children?
Hopefully by witnessing it. You know, I can't teach my children how to live their life, but I can allow them to watch me live it. And maybe that is how I'm trying to transmit it.
But you also mentioned to me you had a great tradition that every year you give your kids a book.
Absolutely. Since they were young teenagers, every year at Christmas time I pick a book that I want them to read, knowing that they may not read it for 10 years. And I put a little inscription in them, hoping that 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, they'll pull it off their shelf and they'll read something that Dad told them.
I love that idea, and I'm going to start to do that with my grandchildren because I think it's a wonderful way to share a love of literature and to expose them to the world. Now, you've told us a lot about you that's very interesting. Is there some other thing you've done in your life that most people don't know about?
I had the opportunity to parachute out of planes. And so that was something that was very interesting because it taught me to conquer fear, and you can survive that fear.
I'm shaking just listening to you. Now, how does all of this great worldview carry over into your work in heart failure and heart transplant?
Well, when I meet a patient with advanced heart failure, I tell them two things. One is that I am going to be their advocate. I'm going to work with them and their family and their other caregivers to create a plan that I recommend for their best quality of life, and then we'll sit down together and decide how we should approach that. But I also tell them when transplant's considered, I have two duties. One is to be their advocate, and also to be the advocate for the memory of the donor's gift of life. And to me, that's a very spiritual and philosophical importance. And what I tell them is, if we do it right, and we pick somebody who will do their best to take care of the gift of life, two people win: the recipient of the donor's gift of life and the memory of the donor.
What a beautiful way to look at what you're doing, the gift of life. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much.